John sauntered through the trendy bistro with a goofy grin on his face. Call it naivety, call it stupidity, but inspiration is inspiration. And when it hits you like a lightning strike, the brain stops commanding the muscles. Now his muscles were moving him straight into the back corridor where he had seen Trudy disappear. The one where, if his memory served him correctly, there were only toilets. He hoped that his memory would not fail him. He's only been here a couple of times, and even then it's been a while. Get some afternoon fun. John's grin grew sillier and sillier, and I hope I don't end up in jail for indecent behavior in a public place. The risk was worth it. He knew it to the core from the second he noticed his wife entering this cafe as he drove past. He didn't usually go to this area for lunch, but business had brought him here, not far from where Trudy worked, and he decided to stop by and say hello. The sight of her in a business-style skirt and a formal blouse made a strange impression on him. The clothes she was wearing were not provocative at all, but they were so different from the usual lounge pants and t-shirts that she had been wearing at home lately. My tasty corporate perk. I want to tear off the buttons with my teeth. It wasn't until his hand touched the handle of the one customer toilet that it dawned on him that Trudy had probably almost certainly locked herself. But he had already begun to turn the handle, not caring about logic. To his shock, the door opened. This was the first shock, but not the last. John dear, Trudy, not paying attention to the exchange of remarks, frantically tried to put herself in order. However, her poorly buttoned blouse and mistress made her efforts somewhat unconvincing. John, the lover's eyes widened. Oh crap, you already said that. John's brief flash of nervous amusement quickly disappeared. Looks like your mouth is only good for one thing. He glared at Trudy, finally forcing himself to tear his eyes away from the girl who had ruined his life, shook his head, turned around and walked back the way he had come, trying not to convince himself that this was a tactical retreat. Just wait. The screens followed him, but became quieter, probably because he was practically running towards the exit, and because Trudy was probably trying to cope with the awkward situation in the tight space where she had just betrayed him. At least today she betrayed me. John was sure that this was not the first time, just as he was sure that this would be the last. Please don't kill me. John had half an hour to prepare for this. Between the time he drove like crazy and Trudy having to go back to the office to get her car, he managed to get home early and get both himself and his thoughts in order. Well, as far as possible, he was, of course, a little out of place. After all, he had never found himself in a situation like this, when the love of his life suddenly showed extra tastes. Additional, at best. He glared at Trudy as she made her plea as she walked through the door. When he didn't answer right away, she swallowed nervously and softly closed the door behind he, apparently not noticing that it didn't even latch. Darling, I can't imagine what's going through your head right now. Trudy cautiously approached her husband, who had his arms crossed and leaned on the bar counter, trying to look collected. I won't. I can't lie to you. Everything is as you think. Well, almost. Is it true? John snorted and kept a straight face. It will be interesting. What am I thinking? That I've gone crazy. Point in her favor. That what you saw was not the first time. Double point. Why are you wondering if you can ever forgive me? Then Trudy sobbed. Do I want to stay? Stay with you. The sob turned into a sob, and she extended a trembling hand to John. When he didn't move, the hand fell limply, still trembling. Congratulations, Trudy. John sighed and looked away from the crying ruin in front of him. You know me. This just goes to show how one-sided our marriage was. No, please. Trudy tried again, but this time she raised both hands and before he could react, squeezed his chest under her elbows. I love you desperately. That hasn't changed one bit. And yes, if you can forgive me, if you can allow me to be a better person, I absolutely want to be a better wife. Oh God, I'm so sorry. She pressed her face to his chest. I stumbled. I fell. I don't know what happened to me. This is something new. She suppressed a painful groan. I didn't. I never lied to you about who I was. I didn't. 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 I just don't. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't. I just don't. I didn't. I just don't. I just don't. I didn't. I just don't. 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 Just, oh God, there's no real way to just say how I let a woman have sex with me, right? Not really. Trudy hesitated, not knowing how to continue. And you perhaps find it. She gave a small smile, full of hope. Stimulating, exciting, John pushed her away. Exciting, Trudy, leave the betrayal aside. Are you seriously asking if it turns me on to think that the woman I love is attracted to something I can't compete with? That I'm not the one she wants and probably never have been? John, no. Just no. This is absolutely not true. Trudy, being prudent, did not try to hug him again. I love you. You are my husband. The one I chose is the one I want to spend my life with. The one to whom I wanted. I would like to give it to my children. His breath hitched, and he felt a flash of sympathy despite himself. God, I thought she handled it. They discovered she couldn't have children many years ago. He was disappointed, but she was devastated, and it took a long time for her to get out of that hole. Lately, they've even started talking about adoption. Apparently, this was the only important topic they really discussed. Trudy wiped her eyes and held back the tears this time. Sorry, I know I shouldn't have said it was a turn-on or anything like that. It was pretty rude. This is real life, and what I did will not just go away. She looked at John for a while, holding his gaze for several long seconds, enough to make him feel uncomfortable. Just as he opened his mouth, deciding to stop letting her do the talking, she chose the moment to fall off the cliff. I have to atone for my guilt somehow. You, be equal if we want to fix this. Trudy bit her lip, suddenly embarrassed. Crap. It's better to just do it. She turned to the barely ajar front door. Christy, it's now or never. Hearing these words and even seeing the doors slowly swing open, John still did not understand anything. No, the realization came only when she appeared, still in a bistro t-shirt and tight black jeans. Even with a small green apron, nervously running his fingers through his fashionable, spiky purple hair, with his eyes looking everywhere but at them. Damn it, Trudy has definitely lost her mind. So yes, it's happening, I guess. Christy looked like she had been hit over the head, avoiding their gaze and absent-mindedly running her finger along the picture frame hanging next to her. God, you two can't say what I'm thinking. John finally managed to speak after a silence that seemed to threaten to crush them all. Trudy, biting her lips so hard that it turned white, finally opened her mouth, but either because of John's answer or because of something else, the gate opened. What the hell, moron? You can't be that stupid. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. I'm gonna blow up your damn world, okay? Christy's face was full of indignation, and she forgot about herself so much that she literally stepped into the living room, where her lover and possibly future lover stood, confused. John just shook his head, trying to understand when his life had turned into a giant farce. It's time to say it straight. You're both crazy. Tell me everything from start to finish without embellishment. Grady slowly shook her head at Christy, her disappointment almost obvious, then turned back to her husband and took a deep breath, and let it out all at once. I slept with Christy 3 times. I love you with all my heart and want to stay married to you. To achieve this, I want you and Christy to sleep with each other. 3 times. She took a deep breath and then gave a small, hopeful smile. And then we'll start all over again. I'll fix everything. From today, Trudy blinked. Yes, of course. Well, okay then. Instantly, John grabbed Christy. Damn, man. Well, 2 words. The whole essence of her condition. What all you can do is talk. John hovered over the young woman, folding his arms and raising an eyebrow, clearly expecting some action from her. Did you just say that you were going to? How did you put it? Blow up my damn world? Do your generations know how to keep their word? Fuck you, you moron. Christy immediately shook off her doubts, and then in one quick movement, she pulled off her loose t-shirt. Why are you doing this? John's own composure quickly dissipated as the reality he tried so desperately to deny came rushing back with a vengeful force. Do you generally love both men and women? She suddenly began to look at her shoes very enthusiastically, nervously turning her feet on the bedroom carpet. No, I don't. I don't think I know. She finally looked at him from under her brows, her beautiful eyes hidden under long, dark eyelashes. I'm not a bad person, but I know what I did to you. I want you and Trudy. To get through this, she talked about you, and I know that you don't deserve. She shrugged. I should be able to live with this. John looked behind him as if he could see through the closed door to everything that Dath remained outside. Then, straightening his shoulders, he took a step towards the woman with whom his wife had slept several times. Apparently, we've all gone crazy here. Trudy sat in her favorite chair for almost 45 minutes, and to be honest, could not remember how she sat there. To be more precise, she wasn't even sitting, rather. She was floating on the edge of the pillow, looking at the corridor that led to their hack bedroom. And what was in that bedroom? She could only imagine. He just took it. She continued to shake her head, in fact. She did this almost all the time. He didn't argue. I didn't protest. Didn't even try to set the terms. He took it. Hypocrisy, your name is Trudy. The nervous laugh that followed this whisper was so full of despair that the almost middle-aged traitor covered her mouth with her hand so as not to give free rein to what else might be at hand. She knew she wasn't fully prepared for the consequences of her plan. Hell, it was a scheme she had a hard time getting Christy to take part in before introducing her to the man they both betrayed. How could she have time to figure out all the details? It shouldn't have happened so quickly. This quiet comment did not cause a giggle, but made her cover her face with her hands. Crap, what was I thinking? Christy emerged from the bedroom looking exhausted with a distant look, as if something had broken her. She fumbled with her clothes, ignoring her unbuttoned jeans, and tried to pull on her t-shirt to cover herself. But she was only half successful. Christy, talk to me. Did I just ruin everything even more? The Trudy, trying to pull herself together, stood up and turned to the leaving young girl, whose fashionable, spiky purple hair was now disheveled and tangled. Everything is fine. Everything was fine. Simply wonderful. Everything was chic and cool. Having finally managed to get her clothes done, Christy stopped at the door to take another long look at Trudy. I will contact you. After the door slammed loudly with such force that the glass shook, Trudy turned around and headed straight towards the bedroom. Inside sat her dear husband, completely naked, sitting on the edge of the bed as if nothing had happened. What the hell can I even say now? Well, we'll have to make do with this. John slowly turned his head and blinked at her in surprise. After a few seconds, he raised his hand. She forgot her bra. Give it to me. Christy snatched the lace lingerie from his relaxed fingers and stepped back. She flew out of here like she fell silent, rubbing her cheek with her free hand. John, I know you don't. I never imagined that you could. She trailed off, sighing. You are a good person, a wonderful person. But I understand that this is not a completely normal situation. I understand. I don't know what's going on inside you right now. And anyone in your place would feel anger, perhaps so strong that, damn it, Trudy, are you seriously asking me or what? What? Did I hurt her? Have we really gotten to the point where you think I got an identity transplant just because you changed yours? No. God, no. Sorry, it's just... Trudy tried to find the right words, realizing that she was still in complete darkness and perhaps did not want the light to illuminate everything that was happening. She looked so shocked. She's a gay girl who just had sex with a man who is a little older than her, a man who is married to someone she really wants to sleep with. John stated everything in a cold, indifferent tone. It shocked me, and I'm the damn victim here. Sorry. Trudy, without thinking, plopped down on the bed next to her husband. You are right, I don't know what to think. She laughed. To be honest, I don't even know what I'm doing. But I know I have to do it. She looked at John warily. I have to because I can't lose you. You are my husband, my best friend, you. You're the reason I wake up in the morning, the reason I come back here every night, the reason I keep moving forward. And when I think about you, I always smile and sometimes I even sing to myself. Her flow of nervous confessions was interrupted when John kissed her, and her sweet sigh against his lips was a fantastic relief. When he finally pulled away, he was smiling, and of course, she started crying. Oh wait, don't. John wiped a tear from her cheek. Look, I love you. I know that I will always love. What you did is tearing me apart. Yes, it hurts, but I know your heart. He put his hand on hers. And damn, you really threw yourself into the process of atonement. It is impossible to deny this. Trudy pressed her head against his broad shoulder and laughed in relief. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I don't deserve you. They lay there for a while without saying a word, enjoying the peace. But in the end, Trudy could not stand it and opened her mouth. So how did it go? It's like she's a mannequin. John chuckled. No wonder. Trudy started to laugh too. The situation really was absurd, but then John continued talking. Later, Trudy wondered how things would have turned out if he had settled on a mannequin. I mean, hot dummy, not gonna lie. Yes, she's weird. Trudy desperately wanted to change the subject, so she switched to something that had always worked, but you're much better. Her hand sped up and she leaned down to nuzzle his cheek, and it's much more delightful. I love you. I will always love you. My stupid brain will never interfere with this, no matter what it. She paused, sighing. Forget I'm talking nonsense again. I'm happy. She pressed herself close to him, resting her forehead on his chest. They fell asleep as they had done many times. He cuddled up to him and he affectionately stroked her blonde curls. It was good. So basically, I think I'll get a promotion. Between that and John's new long-term contracts, we might. Trudy trailed off, tilting her head as she did when she was wondering what to say. Is it true? Seriously? Ava, standing on the other side of the fence, separating their yard from the neighboring nut. One spread her arms wide. Are you moving out? The olive-skinned woman practically stomped her little foot, looking like she was about to make a scene. You are the best neighbors I've ever had, after Cecil. The woman coughed. Well, you understand. I never thought that I would find people with whom I enjoy communicating so much. You can't just pick up and leave. John laughed and hugged his wife. It was quite common for them to stand in the yard with Trudy, chatting over the fence, with their friend. Only such conversations were casual and spontaneous, and after so many years, they had become accustomed to it. Sorry, Ava, but we are careerists, don't you know? We'll live, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles away in luxury. It will be like being on the other side of the moon, Trudy replied dryly, her eyes sparkling with a joke. We'll send you a postcard. Do they still do that? People are age. Ava laughed. Okay, understood. I'll probably have to try harder to keep you in my life. She froze. Her attentive gaze slid behind the backs of her friends. Speaking of people not our age. At Ava's gesture of her chin, John and Trudy turned around and they froze. Unlike Ahab, their reason for surprise was much more significant. Hi. Christy stood at the gate, dressed in what could be called lewd, and clenched her hands so tightly that John heard the joints crack. I we cookie. The word came out of John's mouth faster than he could think it through, but he seized on the idea with desperation. You're getting cookies, right? Cookie delivery, right? Cookie. Ava narrowed her eyes. She's not. Damn it. John decided to ignore his girlfriend and, choosing speed and activity, tried to cover up the cracks in his panicky, false explanations. Okay, fine. Come in. We're dealing with cookies here. He pushed Trudy forward, opening the gate and grabbing Christy's wrist. He took her into the house again. This time she only squeaked quietly instead of screaming loudly, but she still obediently followed him just like last time. Okay, see you. Call me Trudy. Okay then. Ava tried to remain civilized, but her neighbors suddenly disappeared into the house, along gang, with the girl who didn't have a single sweet bun in her hands. This is weird. Ava narrowed her eyes again, but this time for a completely different reason. It's been a week, Christy. I thought John searched for the right words. Fuck you, asshole. Christy glared at him and waved the bottle of beer he gave her, emphasizing every word. I keep my damn promises. Are you going to laugh at me now? God, what's wrong with you? John's eyes started from the bottle to her revealing top, which, unlike the t-shirt, did not hide her flawless curves clearly without any support of Ava. What's wrong with me, really? We just thought you had enough of this. Trudy spoke for the first time since her once secret lover returned. I used you. John, he's already fine. Well, John frowned. Don't exaggerate. Things were actually getting better. He was ready to admit it. But better doesn't mean he was completely fine. He was still very far from this, but he tried. And he knew for sure that vengeful sex does not solve problems. To be honest, he felt disgusted that he had even given in to this the first time, and could only justify it as temporary insanity. Listen, this is all the devil knows. She suddenly lowered her tone and unclenched her clenched fists. Well, almost. John still felt like she was deliberately flexing her tight ass in those short shorts she was wearing today. I've never been in this situation, but Trudy is the first married woman I've slept with. I'm not like that. I'm just not like that. True to you. I'm sorry, but I lost my head with you. Is it true? Trudy blushed and unconsciously licked her lips. Give me, I understand. We've all gone crazy here. Yes, Christy nodded, now a little hesitantly. So I have to fix everything. Listen, everything is fine. Everything is fine. John tried to direct her to the door. Mission accomplished. Damn it, it's not done? Christy jumped up from the bar counter where she was sitting. Listen, idiot, and listen carefully. This is for me. They're old and all that, but I still have many years to live. And these years, I will have to look at myself in the mirror. I don't care about your mirror. John was ready to end this impudent girl. You can't? I don't care about your mirror. John was ready to end this impudent girl. You can't come into my house and demand something when it's you. Just do it. Trudy's little statement stopped them both just as they were about to come face to face. They both turned to her, sitting on the sofa, and she could hardly look up at them. John, I love you very much, but we both know I lied. You're not okay. She raised her head with effort, and I made a promise. Christy and I both gave it. Her smile was weak and sad. This is crazy, but prove to me that you are a good person and have sex with her. John looked at his wife, then on to Christy and again on Trudy. Finally, he growled, crazy women will finish me off. I always knew this. Second time. Let's get started. This time Trudy was watching. This must be the lowest point in my life. How the hell did I end up here? Playing the role of a crazy voyeur. Watching my husband have sex with my mistress in my own damn bedroom. Trudy continued nervously fiddling with her long blonde hair, tangling it more and more, as if this could somehow help her cope with the inner turmoil. This was not an exaggeration. If someone saw her now standing in the backyard of their large house, her nose almost buried in the bedroom window and secretly peeping through the slightly open blinds, that person would not hesitate to agree with her self-assessment. And yet she didn't move. She forced herself to stay still to see the result of what happened when impulses took over, leaving no time to think. And exactly whose impulses were in the spotlight changed every second. Trudy felt deeply offended by this, although in her opinion, Christy was not too keen on this. What was happening? She tries her best, but this is clearly not her path. This fact calmed Trudy a little. She remembered how John described their first meeting a week ago. Sex with Christy was like sex with a mannequin. She could understand that. The thought never left Trudy, and a wave of guilt washed over her again. Trudy jumped in surprise and turned to see Ava standing behind her, watching with a bewildered expression, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. Ava, no, don't come. It's too late. Their sweet, always charming neighbor was already on her tiptoes and peering through the window, acting as she had done hundreds of times before, always being a welcome guest. Only this time the situation was different, completely different. With slow, sad movements, Ava stepped back, covering her mouth in shock. Then, her entire petite figure exuding sympathy, she turned to Trudy. Tell me what I can do for you. Anything to make it easier. Trudy looked up as John entered the living room, startling as if he had broken a window. With his return, he looked as usual, jeans and a t-shirt, a calm expression on his face, the same boyishly charming, slightly disheveled dark hair. What do I look like? Apparently, also normal, judging by his naked, half-apologetic smile addressed to her. Was it that terrible? What? What's terrible? Trudy couldn't stop fiddling with the hem of her skirt, gathered in her hands. Why? Why is it terrible? Well, me and Christy, again, certainly. Of course, yes, it's true. Lord, girl, pull yourself together. Everything was as it was. I'm not going to complain like a child about something that I myself did before. You understand me. Something I myself am guilty of. Sorry, I shouldn't have. John, lost in his thoughts, sat down next to his wife on the sofa. I told myself after the first failure that it was a bad idea. That I could just forgive you and move on. But I told you to do it. Trudy finished for him. He looked at her and smiled. I won't lie, it was a little strange. I could talk to her about it. She's not such a bad girl, honestly. I think she would have listened to reason. Well, after giving me another hour of criticism, of course, his smile grew wider. Damn it, Trudy's smile remained strained, hiding her teeth clenched behind her lips. John, tell me a joke. A joke? Her husband's face was distorted with disbelief. Trudy, you know what jokes I make. All the fun is in laughing at me. Let's just one. She clung to him and batted her eyelashes. Well, please, I need to recharge. Who is the most popular guy in the nudist colony? The one carrying 2 coffees and a dozen donuts. Trudy snorted and buried her face in his shoulder. Oh yes, here it is, what you need, Mr. Donut. She left her face on his shoulder for a long time, especially feeling the need to linger there when John wrapped his arm around her and squeezed tightly. Damn, how I love this man. You know, I'm serious when I say that you are my best friend. She said this, pressing herself against his chest as if she wanted him to feel her words with his body. I can't imagine my life without you. She forced herself to look away and look at him. You and me forever. John ran his fingers over her cheek, and there was so much warmth in this gentle movement that it almost squeezed a sea of tears out of her. You and me, forever. John felt like a creep, but not enough to stop himself from entering Ava's living room through her slightly open front door. He cautiously crept inside, fully aware that he was not invited, and even into a rather dimly lit house. Is she trying to save on electricity? Crap, maybe that's true. Maybe something happened to her finances after her husband Cecil ran away. At that moment, it dawned on him that he barely spoke into his girlfriend and neighbors since Christy dropped the bombshell on them for round 2 over a month ago. Damn it, I'm a bad friend and a coward. Now he realized that he was, in fact, avoiding Ava, although he did not admit it to himself. He hoped that she bought his pathetic attempts to explain the presence of a beauty in short shorts and a top. She's smart enough to see through that stupid cookie number I blurted out. John pinched the bridge of his nose with his fingers. It's good that Trudy was better than me in this regard. I hope she came up with something to explain everything. This is what brought him here in search of his wife. His wife, who, unlike him, remained a good friend for their sweet and beautiful neighbor. Creeping towards the back of the house, John decided to act less suspicious. Hey, Ava, I don't want you to run out with a knife or anything, but I thought maybe Trudy was here. She doesn't answer. Damn it, a great friend is an understatement. Immediately promising himself that he would never walk through an unlocked door again in his life, John froze in place, staring in shock at the performance that was being played out in Ava's sunny room. His wife had sex with Ava, and this was more than enough for him to finally acknowledge the reality that he had tried to deny for too long. Turning to really leave, John laughed bitterly to himself. Trudy said it was something new, but apparently she never said it was finished. Trudy took the cup of coffee from the barista with a smile, as sincere as her desire to drink it. Still not Christy. She sighed heavily and took out several bills from her purse, placing them on the table next to her untouched drink. She won't come back here again. 4 months of throwing away money was enough for even my stupid head to understand this. You could have ordered something else, you know. I understand that you hate coffee, but they have something else on the menu besides that. Trudy looked at her interlocutor and smiled slightly, albeit sadly. Christy was a coffee master. I didn't want to risk her not showing up if I didn't order. She shrugged. Okay, you're right. It's not for nothing that I called myself a fool. HM, I think you're being too hard on yourself. But of course I'm biased. Ava's gaze changed from sympathetic to hot, and she began to run her finger along the low neckline of her thin pink and white sundress. And if you're a fool, that's good, because I find fools' caps sexy as hell. Caps for fools. Trudy forgot about her despondency for a moment, and even smiled sincerely. This is unfair. You know that I'm weak to bad jokes. Yes, and how weak the thoughts inside her head did not coincide at all with her external reaction, which was expressed in the words, God, what are you doing? Ava's smile became downright mischievous and almost devilish. If you have decided to abandon your mission to find your first lover, then before you say goodbye to this place, how about I show you the full tour of your second? Full tour. Full. The bathroom door in the back hallway slammed open for the 1,000th time as two women rushed in. I'm going. Don't hope for it. Both women turned, frozen in mortal confusion, and looked at the young girl standing in the doorway and looking at them with absolute calm and without the slightest shame. Trudy was the first to recover, laughing lightly as if it was all one big joke. Why, we just like to change clothes. Because we are friends and friends. Girlfriends do this, certainly. Today my friend came and stole my panties because he was cold. The barista, the one who brought Trudy the coffee, was tapping her foot with obvious irritation. Lady, clean this all up. She waved her hand at their half-naked bodies. And just know that, starting tomorrow, people will need a key at the register to get in here. She shook her head. Finally, the boss listened to me about the fact that this room attracts lovers like a magnet. There was nothing to say, so neither woman tried. Instead, with an incredible embarrassment that neither of them had ever experienced, they hid their bodies and headed for the exit as quickly as possible, burning with such a bright blush that they looked more like walking fires. They were accompanied by their young guard, of course. Near the door, the girl who caught them suddenly giggled, as if she had heard a joke. I have to tell Chris that she was right in calling this place a cougar bait. Chris, Trudy turned sharply and grabbed the girl by the shoulders, looking intently into her eyes. You mean Christy? Do you know where she is? You must give her a message from me. Tell her that Trudy, she stopped, collecting her thoughts. Tell her that I need to talk to her. What? What am I begging for? She closed her eyes. Tell her she didn't do anything wrong. Say it was only my fault. Every little thing. She closed her eyes. Her voice became quieter. Please. The girl only nodded, not having time to quickly process the sudden change in mood of the mature girl. Satisfied with this, Trudy nodded as well and walked away with Ava. Both women holding hands, clinging to each other in place of their vanished pride. The road home turned out to be long. Trudy, I think. Ava leaned forward in the passenger seat of Trudy's small coupe. Her eyes narrowed. I swear I saw someone moving in your house. Christy, Trudy exclaimed enthusiastically. Her friend must have called her, and she was there. She parked the car at Ava's driveway as she had done many times lately, since she had been living with her in every sense except the formal. Trudy, Ava looked wary. This doesn't make sense. I don't think. Wait. The blonde almost didn't hear the last one as she had already gotten out of the car and was quickly heading towards her home, her abandoned home in all respects, with the obsessive goal of finding at least a grain of forgiveness that she so needed. I can make things right with Christy. I can make everything better even if she's the only one I can find. Trudy found herself in the house and screamed before she even had time to take a proper breath. Christy, is it you? Listen, I'm serious. Everything I said to your friend, I said from the bottom of my heart. I'm so sorry for... Oh, Trudy stopped in her tracks as a figure emerged from the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Oh, damn it. Hello. John awkwardly scratched his new short beard. His voice was flat and devoid of emotion. I thought we'd leave before you noticed. Oh, John's cry of surprise. Even his words did not reach Trudy, just as Ava's warning did not reach a minute earlier. All she knew was that her husband, the man who had disappeared so suddenly that not even his mother and brother knew where he was back. He's back, and now he's in her arms again. John, my God, you're here. She squeezed him even tighter, wet from the tears that flowed from her eyes and soaked into his T-shirt without having another way out. I can't believe it. You weren't. Gertrude, you're suffocating me. Reality hit Trudy, and it hit her hard. The woman, the wife, the cheater, the liar, stepped back looking at him with wide eyes. In all her imagination, all her fantasies about how this meeting would go, if she saw her husband again, she never even imagined that he would talk to her as if she were a casual acquaintance. Someone who, judging by his tone, meant nothing to him anymore. Crap, you know? It wasn't a question, and Trudy saw confirmation in his sullen look. Oh my God, you saw it. That was all. single look of sadness that he gave her destroyed all her excuses and illusions that she had been telling herself for months. All her fairy tales about how he suffered from Christy more than he showed, that he just needed time. All of this collapsed in 1 second. And in the next second, Trudy used that same one to run away from there as far as possible. John didn't want this. He never wanted this. After that day, he just gave up. He was not proud of it, but then he was overwhelmed by one desire to escape, to leave that place and that woman who apparently had played pretend with him their entire life together. He didn't plan to return to this house, but if he was honest with himself, he didn't really plan anything. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise that that plan failed too, forcing him back to the scene of the worst moment he could remember. Well, in fact, next to this place, if we're being picky, close enough. Close enough that his wife legally could find him quickly, and just as quickly ran away because he couldn't hide that he was no longer the man she knew, showing that she obviously was too. I was pretending all this time. He almost expected this, which, by the way, was the reason why he tried to enter so secretly, hoping to enter and leave without being noticed. If he were honest with himself, he would admit that he half expected failure, and the blonde's swift escape confirmed his prediction. But what he did not expect at all was that the blonde would be followed by a brunette who quickly appeared from the bedroom, rushing after her without a word. Before John could say anything, he was overtaken by another encounter that he had been dreading. Ava finally appeared seconds later as Trudy rushed past her at full speed, almost crashing into her friend, who managed to jump away in panic. This panic saved her from the second comet flying towards her, and left her with an expression of utter bewilderment when she saw both women disappear. Turning back into the house, her eyes widened in amazement when she saw John there in his utter confusion. "John, Ava, I don't want..." Oh, this time the hug was even stronger as the legs also joined in, and John found himself in a completely crazy situation. He had to support the weight of a petite neighbor who was his wife's mistress and with whom he had previously been on good terms. Standing there, unsure of how to react, John sighed as heavily as his constricted lungs would allow and looked down at the small woman with the large grip. "Oh my God, are you going to be my comfort sex too?" "Not for anything in the world." Ava mumbled the answer into his t-shirt. "Now hug me, handsome. Pretend you don't hate me." Damn it. John placed both hands on her back. It wasn't a real hug, but at least it was something. The only thing he could do for her. It was clear from her long sigh that this was enough for her, although she still held him for about 20 minutes. When Ava finally let go of him and stood on the ground, John took the opportunity to walk around her and sit on the chair. He folded his hands in his lap and stared at his neighbor, piercing her with his gaze. "Apparently you knew why I disappeared." "You knew that I knew everything, yes, immediately." Ava sat down too, although there was no invitation. She looked neither provocative nor particularly bashful. Trudy refused to believe it. "For months, I couldn't accept that the only reason you could suddenly leave her was because you thought she left you first." Ava shrugged. "This means only one thing: you caught us." "Caught you doing arts and crafts in her sunny room?" Ava tilted her head and her thick, silky black hair slid over one shoulder. "Arts and crafts? You were engaged in scissors." "Oh God." Ava moaned but grinned at the same time. "If I were more like Trudy, I'd rip your pants off right now." "It was terrible. It's lucky for you that she's not here, I suppose." John didn't smile. "The last thing she needs right now is more confusion." "I agree with this." Ava's smile disappeared and she answered him with the same serious look. "John, I love you. If you tell Trudy what I say next, I'll deny a day and night. But I always thought that you and I were better friends than me and her." When he opened his mouth, she raised her hand to stop him. "And that's why my heart is breaking right now, despite how I appear on the outside. It hurts because I love you, little elf. But I fucking love her." She said the last words with special emphasis. "I love it. Do you know what I mean?" John's nostrils flared. "How long ago?" "From the first day we met. Not a second of hesitation, and my feelings were unrequited. Until then, finally, Ava lowered her gaze to the floor, showing that she still had a conscience. "Crap, looks like I'll have to admit it. I saw an opportunity and sneaked up on her when she was spying on you and Christy, and her heart broke. She seemed completely exhausted. John, I'm so sorry, but I'm not sorry at all. Damn, everything is so confusing. What did she do? John jumped to his feet, his face darkening with rage. Was she spying on us? Damn it, that's why. I mean, she said it herself. It was her dam. He realized he was going in circles and forced himself to stop. Feeling like an idiot, he ran his hand over his face, trying to calm down. Her heart broke, didn't it, that? That might be the most tragic irony I've ever heard. Exactly. Ava spread her hands as if saying, well, what can you do? John narrowed his eyes as a sudden thought flashed through his mind. Her heart broke because I was with someone else. Or, John, listen to me and believe this if you don't believe anything else. Ava stood up faster than he expected and immediately took his hands, squeezing them tightly. Trudy loves you madly and always, always will. But Christy, she awakened something in her, showed her something new. Yes, she said. No, I'm not good at explaining. Ava furrowed her brows. It's not that Trudy just got very excited, which she couldn't suppress. She didn't become an adrenaline junkie or anything like that. Christy helped her complete the painting. You an amazing, loving, abused man were the frame, the one that gave it shape, but every picture must be complete, otherwise it is not a picture. Christy showed her the missing piece. John never considered himself particularly smart, but he did a pretty good job. And at that moment, a sudden insight dawned on him. Christy showed her, and you inserted this piece. Ava collapsed onto the sofa as if the air had been drained from her, covering her face with her hands and bursting into sobs. I love her so much, and now, after all these months that we lived together, I can't even imagine life without her by my side, and I know that makes me a monster. I know this. I offended you so much. I can't even imagine what's going on inside you right now. If you slap me, I will accept it and ask for more. Anything to get rid of this mountain of guilt that I now carry. Why do all the newly made mistresses suddenly decide that I am capable of hitting a woman? Ava sniffled, but with a small smile. Newly minted. I haven't been new for a long time. Insight number 2 hit John, and he sat back down in his chair. Your husband Cecil, he was. A cover, right? He left when he realized that you. Who are you? Or did he act like me? As if reading his thoughts, all the chuckled. He left because he betrayed me. So no, not like you. The bastard left, breaking the deal. You left with a broken heart. Huge difference. Seeing the question in his eyes, off aside. In short, he loves men the same way I love women. Our families come from old places where this is not tolerated. We found each other and agreed on a 10-year marriage to appease our families. But he only gave me 5 and a ton of credit card debt. Bastard. Sorry, John said this sincerely, but at the same time he wanted her to suffer. Although no, not for real. But he wanted to want for her to suffer. Everything was confusing. I know you're sorry. You. She completely sank into her chair. You don't deserve a second of this. I know I'm repeating myself, but then stopped playing the same record. John pulled himself together. Look, Ava, we're not friends anymore. Just not friends. So if you don't mind, get out of here and leave me alone. I came back here on business, and now I have to wait. It was Christy, the one who chased Trudy, right? Having completely ignored everything he had just said, this little woman now seemed animated. I only saw her once. Well, twice to be more precise. But the second time you were both naked. She cleared her throat. But I know it was her. Is she with you? Ava leaned forward even more. You mean? With you. It's complicated. Oh, damn, Trudy, she's gonna die. He won't die. She can handle it. She has you, after all, the love of her life. She is the love of my life. Ava's face turned stony, and there is no doubt about it. And there is also no doubt that her heart will belong to both of us. I accepted it, even if she didn't accept it yet. And I've really come to terms with it. This is impossible. John rolled his eyes. You just haven't lived with it yet. 4 months, it's nothing. Wait until she starts to suffer. Try losing her after a few years, and then talk to me. I said reconciled, not over the moon, idiot. Ava tensed up noticeably. I do believe in karma of sorts, and I know that the life I'm looking at now, a life where the one I love will always be thinking about what the other way would have been, is a punishment. This is the price I have to pay for being a sneaky little bitch. For ruining her while her husband was blindsided by his own mistake. By Ava ignored him, lost in her memories. I thought I was saving her. She closed her eyes. It was the greatest moment of my life. Until it ended, and she burst into tears confessing what she did to you. And then it became the worst moment. So yes, karma, Trudy will always be partly yours, even if you never see her again after today. I put up with it because I have to. And because it's you. She looked at him with difficulty. And I still love you, buddy, even if we're not friends anymore. Damn crazy women. John threw his head back and covered his eyes with his hand. I can't help but agree. Ava hesitated a little. So, do you want to tell me why you're here and what you've been doing, while we wait for our lovers to finally talk heart to heart? No, John sighed heavily, but to end this once and for all. Okay, I'm sure Christy will tell her version. I'll tell you mine so you can tell Trudy, and it'll be over. He looked away. I won't have to see her again. Everything that happens next can be resolved by mail or something else. His voice lowered. Clean break. This sucks. Ava's lip trembled, and she wiped her hand under her eye, trying to control her emotions. It sucks more than... Okay, I'm listening. John nodded. So imagine I just found my friend, whom I didn't know that she loved women, and my wife, whom I didn't want to assume was not of a traditional orientation. 4 months ago, Christy had to lift her head, standing in the doorway of her apartment. She knew deep down that she always had to do this when she looked at him, but this time it seemed especially terrifying. The problem was that she knew she wasn't Jack. Let's do this. Christy blinked and furrowed her brow. Are you knocking on my door and shouting demands? What exactly will we do? What the hell do you want? Wait a minute. How the hell do you know where I live? Were you following me, idiot? John looked away, showing a faint sign of embarrassment. I followed you from that bistro. Today once, this is not surveillance, this is reconnaissance. Look, you knew where I lived, right? We're even. Lived? Christy frowned. She really didn't like where this was going. What are you? Something happened. John walked past her into the apartment, and it was a testament to her sudden moral nausea that she didn't immediately knee him in the groin. No explanation, sex. This is what I came for. Number 3, you owe me, right? Just because every other time it was on your schedule doesn't mean... This damn persistent man was silenced by a kiss. Christy told herself there were dozens of reasons for this, but mostly she was just glad he wasn't talking anymore. There is no point in us talking. Nothing will change anyway. To hell with it. Taken by surprise, that's a coop son of a bitch. John took a step back but tripped and fell on the sofa. They had sex? Reality suddenly hit her, and Christy sat up. Then she stared at him as if she was watching an accident in slow motion. John's face darkened with concern, and he sat up, taking her by the shoulders, his large hands squeezing lightly to let her know he was there. Christy, what's wrong? His hands froze. Sorry, I know I've come into this like a bull into a china shop, but I want you to know that you should never, ever do anything you don't want to. John, Christy felt 2 lonely tears roll down her cheeks. We messed up. I can't believe it. Trudy, sitting on Ava's chair in her living room, where she had immediately fled after the humiliating encounter with John, could not take her eyes off Christy's naked body. She had no way to look away from what was standing right in front of her. How could we be so damn stupid? When it comes to such grandiose mistakes, there are always 3 people dancing the tango. It seems. Looks like it, Trudy chuckled involuntarily without a hint of amusement. The situation was like a time bomb that had been building for 5 months and was not yet ready to explode. Christy, it's my fault. All her shoulders sagged. I ruined your life. You don't control me, Trudy. Christy pinched her nostrils at these words. I make my own decisions. Damn it, and I made every one of them with you. And with him she ran her hand over her swollen belly, and calling it destruction is a little offensive to our baby, don't you think? Trudy looked at her already noticeable belly as if she was in a trance. She is carrying my husband's child, the man I love, and the girl I slept with got pregnant. The world has gone crazy. How could we be so stupid? You already said that, Christy answered sharply, flaring with irritation for a moment, but then pulled herself together, probably having already gained experience over the past months of struggling with hormones. It's not that stupid, if you think about it. You and John don't worry about protection, and I never thought about it because of my preferences. She shrugged. This is all just a big joke. Have you ever thought not to do this? Trudy swallowed. not knowing how to tactfully approach this topic. Well, when you found out, I knew right away that I wanted to keep the child. No questions asked. Trudy waited confident that Christy would say something else. But she simply pulled her shirt over her stomach and, looking down defiantly, fell silent. It's not that I don't know the truth. I knew this for a long time. I want you to be a part of his life, Trudy. Christy sat down again, looking at the floor. The tough, brave young woman suddenly became a frightened girl. There is no roadmap for us. You and I betrayed John. Your neighbor betrayed John. John and I betrayed you. John didn't betray anything, Trudy hissed, suppressing the suddenly fluttering butterflies in her stomach at the thought of Christy's desire. I won't listen to you repeat that. Understood. Trust me. Her voice became as cold as Antarctica. Christy swallowed and nodded with wet eyes, and Antarctica thought a little. Christy, you don't have to say this out loud, but I know why you decided to keep the baby. When Christy opened her mouth, Trudy continued, No, everything is fine. I just want to thank you for your offer, because you are better than me. In everything, the last words sounded so quietly that she herself was not sure whether she said them out loud. Trudy, please don't hate me. I didn't achieve anything special here. I'm no better than you, damn it. Christy took her former lover's hands. We need you. Very. Who is we? Trudy looked at Christy and slowly began to process what she saw. In the 4 months that they had not seen each other, the girl had changed a lot. And not only externally, the hair became long and natural without a single purple spike, as before, but also internally. The light emanating from her was more than just the light of future motherhood. There was something more to her. Much more. Chris, can you tell me how it was? When the young woman frowned, not understanding, Trudy swallowed and clarified. With John over these months, you too. Christy laughed hoarsely. This is not a man. This is a car. When Trudy turned pale, Christy quickly added, Not in this sense, since that incident on my couch, we haven't touched each other anymore. Sexually, never. I think this qualifies as a third, so yeah, that's it. Seriously, you say you've been avoiding each other for 4 months. There was obvious disbelief in Trudy's tone. Christy shrugged, embarrassed. Well, we joked and pushed each other and all that. I think we were like touching shoulders while watching TV on the couch together. Maybe I leaned on him a little. He's a good hug pillow. And well, we hugged a couple of times when the test results were good. Trudy didn't know what her face looked like, but whatever she was expressing, it prompted Christy to hurriedly continue. He lived with me, worked with clients remotely, and was there at every stage, at every appointment. Every time I come across stupid advice and stuff on the internet, every moment of research on what to buy, what preparations to make, unconsciously, Christy stood up and walked to the window to look at something that only she could see. He was amazing. He will be wonderful. She fell silent and closed her eyes. But he still needs you. That's for sure. He won't want me. This was not a plaintive request for reassurance. Trudy felt the truth of her words in every cell of her body. He won't want me because I don't know who I am. For him, for you, forever. Suddenly she was pierced by a sob that she could not hold back. I don't know. No one knows. I'm lost. I'm worthless. I'm a stupid, selfish, cheating bitch who thinks with her body. And I just want him to hold me. And I want Ava to hug me. And, oh God, Trudy was halfway to standing up when she suddenly realized that Christy was lifting her up. Okay, enough of this. We'll go back there now. Chris, Trudy wiped her snotty nose with her hand, feeling sorry that this girl should be braver than her. This is a bad idea. Into the lion's mouth, baby. Christy laughed with such false bravado that Trudy almost giggled, but damn it, still gave her strength. We'll make this big cat purr, or at least give him something to sink his teeth into. Trudy only wished that the thought was not a joke. Through the window, John saw Christy returning from Ava's house with Trudy on her tail, and he immediately jumped to his feet, clutching his backpack tightly in his hands. Damn it, I told her that I don't want. He looked at Ava, who had been silently looking at one point all this time after he finished talking about the pregnant woman. Tell Christy that I will meet her at home. I'm calling a taxi. I'm not going to put up with this. Home, Ava grinned. What does this word even mean now? She rubbed her temples and also stood up. John, I'm not going to tell you that you should. Great impulse. He glanced at her. Good luck, Ava. It's a shame things didn't work out better for us." And with that, he turned on his heel and headed for the back door of what he once considered a refuge from the outside world, places from which he never expected that he would have to escape in order to avoid that very outside world, places where the woman he had once shared with was now a stranger. All he knew was that pain was coming, and he already had more than enough of it. "I'll climb over the fence, walk a couple of blocks, and call a taxi. She won't know which way I went, and there will be no confrontation. No more meaningless lies." John was already opening the back door when his plans began to take shape, and because of this, he was not so attentive. He had to back away sharply to avoid crashing into Christy, who was standing right in front of him with her hands on her hips. "Ah, damn it! What the—" "I knew it." Christy shook her head as a sign of triumphant disappointment. "I knew you would try to sneak away. You knew because I told you John had no patience for this new attack of righteous anger. I made it clear to you what to expect when we came here. When you persuaded me to come, and item number 1 on that list is no damn Trudy." "John!" The voice came from behind him, and all he could do at that moment was close his eyes and let another treacherous prick pierce him. "I love you. I love you so much that I won't try to stop you from hating me if that's what you need." Trudy's voice sounded as if it had been put through a meat grinder. "Christy, let him go. Please, we can't keep doing this to him." No one made a sound as John stood there, not turning or moving. Finally, he took a step forward. Christy took a step back, following him, but not moving out of his way. "John, come back. Please, it can't. You need her as much as you need her." "You have no idea what you're talking about, Christy." He tried to calm his breathing. "You can't imagine how much it hurts. I already told her that I want her to be a part of our child's life." Christy licked her lips, noticeably nervous. "This is correct. Correct, damn it." John threw his backpack on the ground and raised his hands to the sky. "There is no right here, Christy. You acted impulsively because you are young and stupid and you are ashamed of it. You know what? This happens to everyone. God, you don't have to keep climbing this altar of self-sacrifice. You realized what you did. You stopped. You're a good damn person and you don't need to keep torturing yourself." "It's not. I don't." Christy, having forgotten who she was and what she was in her essence, stepped back instead of meeting his passion word for word. But John didn't even notice. "What? Isn't this what? Isn't it true? You know it's true. You said it yourself then. You were ashamed, so you had sex with me. You had to do it clinically and set a deadline, so you gave a number. 3. That was smart of you. No feelings. Just a deal. Everything is fine. We've reached 3. All. Yes, something happened that neither of us were prepared for. But you and I are ready now, and you won't be alone. So you don't even have to think about Trudy anymore." "So do I. Something happened." "Something. Here she is. Old Christy? Is that what you call it, idiot? I mean, I'm not trying to minimize what you're going through." John tried to pull himself together, realizing his mistake. "What am I going through?" Christy grabbed his shirt with both hands. "How can you be so selfless and so heartless at the same time? You've been my damn savior for months because we're in this until the very end, you idiot. We get through this hand in hand." "Yes, of course," John frowned. "Chris, did you think I wanted to leave you? God, you're so blind." John's determination to break up was almost crushed by Trudy's words. But Christy's hands on his shirt did not allow him to turn around and look at his future ex-wife. As a sign of compromise, he simply addressed her without taking his eyes off the suddenly angry young woman who was carrying his child. "Yes, Gertrude, am I blind? I'll tell you, not anymore. Now, I see everything very clearly, probably for the first time in my life." "Now you're lying." Trudy's voice sounded broken. "If it were true, then you would see that Christy is crazy about you, John." Christy's hands unclenched at the same moment that John's stomach clenched. This doesn't make sense. She loves women. I thought so too." Christy gave Trudy a look, full of a mixture of disappointment and gratitude before meeting John's gaze again. "I met a girl before. I had sex for the first time and many times. Everything was logical. I've never met a guy who was attracted to me. Not for real. But there was this doctor who came into the bistro and I don't know. He hooked me, and it shook me. And then I met Trudy. She was like 2 peas in a pod like my first lover, and I needed to prove something to myself. I really, really wanted to get back to what I told myself I knew. Her eyes turned red, and she led me straight to you. John's throat was dry, and he croaked with difficulty. Chris, come on, idiot. Her sad but hopeful little smile began to slowly rise at the corners of her mouth. You easily believe that Trudy has hidden predilections for girls. Is it so strange that it can work in the other direction? Christy, you can't love me. You barely know me. John looked around the room restlessly as if looking for help. This may not have been much help, but Trudy tried to clarify some points. John, you hooked her after the first time you were together. Why do you think she came for a second time? Why was she so insistent that this happened? It happened because you told us to do it. John was now able to look at Trudy, and what he saw was not a pleasant sight. The woman looked like ruins. All her pain, fear, and guilt were literally displayed on her face. But he didn't care. You pushed us towards each other. 'Cause I saw it. I saw how you smiled the day you slept together for the first time. You said she was horny, that she was hot. You were delighted that she was having a good time with you. And you really started to like the girl I cheated on you with. She started treating you after what I did, and I realized it when she came again and none of us asked her. Christy shifted uncomfortably, admitting that Trudy was right. I wanted more, and it scared the crap out of me, but not enough to stop myself. And then you really gave me more. And damn it, I'll tell it like it is. The second time was by far the best sex of my life. John turned to Christy just as she placed her hand on his chest and looked into his eyes with complete vulnerability. After that last time, I couldn't even imagine that it was possible. We talked, I started to get to know you, and I liked you. Very. She swallowed. So much so that I decided to stay away from you, because I was sure that I would do something incredibly cruel to Trudy. And then I found you. It became clearer to John now. It's clear how possible this is in a crazy situation. And I was already carrying your child. Christy nodded, sobbing. And you turned out to be like the coolest one in this situation. And he remained cool. And he was next to me. And you make me laugh and you make me feel safe. And I know that everything will be okay because you make me so damn happy that my chest tightens. But then sometimes I think about the fact that you won't be here next to you, that you will not be with me at all. And then I stop breathing. At the moment when he began to understand what was happening, John, as if repeating his appearance in her life 4 months ago, drowned out her words with his kiss. I love you madly, idiot. And if you feel anything like what I feel, talk to your wife. For my sake, John pushed Christy away and stood trembling, looking at her. No, John, please, oh God, please don't. Trudy sobbed from behind him. He realized that she either fell to her knees or was already on the ground, but did not check. I'll call you Christy. You won't be alone, but I can't be with you. Not like before. Not if you continue to refuse to see that I, John, exhaled every last drop. I just can't. I have no strength. He picked up the backpack, put it in Christy's numb hands, and began to leave. I'm not who you all want me to be. To anyone looking at them from the outside, Trudy and Christy might have seemed like they were competing in a competition to see who could get dehydrated from crying the fastest. Ava understood this because she was actually looking at them from the outside. She fought with herself not to join them. Damn it, he's not even rejecting me, but I feel like crap. Although, to be honest, based on what she overheard, John had no intention of leaving Christy and their unborn child. She knew it was out of character and never would be. He just wasn't going to be old, reliable Jonathan that rocked standing high against the waves. The waves won. They destroyed it, washed it away. Girls, come inside. We need to discuss everything. Ava held the door for them and watched heartbroken as they entered the abandoned house like the living dead. When they were all seated and had used up a couple of boxes of tissues, Ava decided to clear the air with what she thought was an innocent question. What's in the backpack? Christy looked up at this stranger, narrowing her eyes with suspicion. This is not your this is a photo album, her mistress answered in a dead, even voice. It must be. At Ava's puzzled look, Christy sighed and opened her backpack, losing her instinctive anger. As Trudy predicted, the girl took out a thick, worn photo album. He said he wanted it for his child. What is this? She cast an apologetic glance at Trudy, This is the only thing in this house that he couldn't leave. It was a gift from his grandmother when he was a child, and it's full of photographs of his life. Considering how much Trudy's body was trembling, it was surprising that the entire sentence was able to be said. Mostly his father, another sob, and her voice dropped to a whisper. He needs to show his child the man who made him who he was, because that man left this world a bay. Long time ago. Beside her, Christy nodded silently. We're such bastards, Ava said, feeling all the muscles in her body weakened at the same time. Bastards, past tense. Christy shook her head as if clearing it of cobwebs. Damn it, I'm not mistaken. He'll turn into an empty shell if he doesn't reconcile with you, Trudy. Damn it, I can't let my husband walk around with a hole in his chest that I can't... Damn, she turned pale, staring at Trudy. Sorry, I made my choice, Trudy shrugged, still whispering, still looking at the floor. Be that as it may, the choice has been made, and I will have to live with it. We'll have to. I have no right to anything more. We'll have to. Doesn't that speak for itself? Ava kept a calm expression on her face. It was one of the hardest things she had ever had to do. So, what does this mean in practice? Sorry, girls, but sitting here and crying not only won't solve anything, it's honestly just corny. Well, tears, we really can't think of anything better. I'll stay here. Christy's voice sounded more confident than she looked. John loves. She touched her rounded belly, closing her eyes. He won't leave us to our fate, I know that. This means that he will have to come here, which means he will be next to Trudy. It will be a kind of immersion therapy, and he will understand that you didn't do all this on purpose, that you had no choice. He'll fucking remember why you need each other. Why should he forgive you? Well, he just has to, right? Trudy didn't respond with words, but her glance in Christy's direction was grateful and full of fear. At that moment, Ava had a choice. Remain silent and maintain this illusion, or ask a question that was so obvious but so destructive. What happens if you're right? I lasted 2 months. I needed to understand that I was living on borrowed time. John looked at the phone, which was ringing for the 3rd time in the last few minutes. He stared intently at the name on the screen, which seemed to be boring into his gaze. Gertrude. Yes, he changed his name in his contacts. Maybe it was petty or maybe not. 2 months. He managed to survive for 2 months, making frequent trips from his brother's house to his former home to visit Christy and be near the mother of his child, with little interaction with the woman he once lived with. He considered this an achievement and was proud of it. He was proud of the fact that he was able to know Christy's mood so well that he could accurately predict when the young woman was planning her next trick to lure him to Trudy and force them to make peace. He was pleased that there was such a connection between them, that he could read her so well, and admittedly he used this connection to sneak away in time before Trudy showed up. Sometimes, however, there was no need to disappear. During these 2 months, John quickly realized that if Christy had sex with him, then all her mistakes and impulses to fix what she believed she had destroyed would immediately disappear, which meant there was a hell of a lot of sex in those 2 months. John smiled with pleasure at the thought. And there were also conversations that they had while hugging, when they clung to each other as if they were the only ones in the world. Conversations about the future, discussions about how words like wife and husband sound. Wife, husband. John looked again at the phone, which rang again. It's time to do something about it. He spoke almost at the same time as his finger pressed the answer button. Okay, let's do this, Gertrude. I know you won't stop. John, you need to come to the hospital urgently right now. Trudy had never thought about what it meant to be an executor of will, because she had never had to deal with it. But when she signed the last document from the stack that was given to her, everything became crystal clear. The last performer was a willing fool. How can there be so much paperwork? After all, there isn't even any property. All I had was her. With this thought, Trudy mentally reproached herself, holding back tears, which had become a peculiar skill for her lately. How could she complain about captions when Christy died? She could mentally say these words, come to terms with this cruel injustice preeclampsia, such a sterile name for something so evil. But she knew that she would not be able to say it out loud for a long time. So she signed the paperwork allowing staff to handle the remains, Oh God, Christy, why did I agree to this? Executor of the will if you die and power of attorney if you don't die. Have you seen this before? Has there been a history of difficult pregnancies in her family? Trudy didn't know this and was unlikely to find out soon. Christy has not left any information about her family or where she is from. It would take a private investigator to find out. We can think about this later. One of a million things to think about later. But now, Trudy handed the last document to the faceless hospital employee who almost forcibly handed it to her, took a deep breath, and forced herself to walk towards the neonatal intensive care unit, feeling as if she was walking through a scorched desert in search of an oasis. An oasis that lay behind the broad, hunched shoulders of the man in front of her, one who was trembling just as much as she was. John, that's all. That's all she could say. She wasn't ready for this. How could anyone be prepared? What word could you choose to somehow make what was happening easier, especially considering that it was her and him? What word wouldn't make everything 1,000 times worse? Chris. Trudy started to nod, but there was something in the tone of his voice, some slightest hint. Christopher, oh my God, it's so. Trudy lost the battle with herself and burst into tears. This is perfect. I'll make sure that. Well, she sighed. Is in the documents. She saw John turn his head slightly in her direction, but not enough to take his eyes off his son lying in front of them, hooked up to multiple machines and fighting for his life. Thank you, Gertrude. She sighed again, this time depressed, but not surprised, certainly. There was a pause, and she took a step forward. John, tell me to get the hell out if you want. I won't say a word, but can I? Just for a minute. Please, sit down. He patted the empty chair next to him. You are here, and I. Unhappy, Trudy, feeling brave, ran her hand over his, still bowed back, as she sat down. I understand. His answer was an indefinite wheeze, and the next hour was filled only with this sound. It was the only sound either of them made, other than the occasional sob that they quickly held back. They both knew that they could only allow themselves such small outbursts of emotion, because if they gave in to more, they would simply collapse, and that was not fair to Chris and to Christy too. Even when she left, they both owed her. In the end, they had to leave. Rules were rules, and they were only able to return to their son the next day. Leaving the hospital, both looked like ghosts, tired and empty. In a strange, touching moment of synchronicity that John and Trudy had long thought impossible, they silently walked to the nearest of their cars, hers as it turned out, and drove together to their old house, which had not been lived in for a long time. There was no discussion about this either. No arguments. It had to happen, and they both accepted it. When they walked inside, each sat down opposite the other. The silence that surrounded them was simply a continuation of what had been going on since they left the hospital. But now, it was time to end it. Time to bring some order to the chaos that their lives had become. John, I need to show you something. Trudy left for a minute and then returned with a large envelope. Christy, she never stopped making plans. Conning, John said with a smile. I know I won't say I liked it, but it was her. Despite what Trudy had to say, she smiled too. Yes, she was restless. Her smile faded and she cleared her throat. So yes, Christy was being cunning. And damn it, she thrust the envelope into his hands. Read it, I think. I'll wait. When he reached for the envelope with a frown on his face, Trudy held his hand for a moment. John, remember, she was young, she was tormented by guilt, but she really loved you. With even greater bewilderment on his face, John took the envelope, pulled out the papers from it, began to relax, read, and suddenly burst out laughing as if it were a list of the best jokes in the world. Are you kidding me? He looked at his wife. Gertrude, do you seriously think? Really, damn it, I know. Trudy shook her head and leaned her forehead on her hand. I'm only showing you this because I promised her, and I don't have the strength to break this promise even now. She nodded at the papers. Will, adoption papers. This is crazy. She snorted without joy, and that's what I told her, every time she suggested it. And it wasn't enough, because we didn't see each other often enough for it to sink in, because you kept showing up and not letting me. She swallowed and her eyes widened. Sorry, this is terrible. I don't blame you for anything. Honestly, if you came home, I would leave forever, I swear. John looked at her, and Trudy clearly saw him decide to let it go, focusing instead on the papers in his hands. "I want Trudy to adopt my child," he quoted from the notarized page. "Has she even studied custody laws? I'm the biological father, and even if we weren't married." "Like I said, I know," Trudy shrugged, feeling awkward. She didn't want to hear it. "She thought she could outplay you." "She was. Okay, I'll tell it like it is. Lately, she has started to have a mania for us to make peace. Don't be together." Trudy felt her cheeks flush and hated herself for it. She didn't think about being polygamous. Well, it doesn't matter, a threesome relationship. She just wanted you too well. "I stopped hating you." Yes, this quiet answer was barely audible. She thought she could make it happen, even at the risk of what she really wanted. God, how we broke her. John's nostrils began to flare, and Trudy saw how he was losing his internal struggle. "We destroyed it. Damn, I killed her." His face pressed against her chest, and Trudy didn't even remember how she ended up next to her. His arms wrapped around her, squeezing her, and she didn't resist. "God, no. No, John. You gave her something she didn't even know she needed. Something new, important in her life, something she was missing. You didn't kill her. Nobody was killed. Nature made a mistake, because nature often makes mistakes. She wiped away her own undeserved tears. Believe me, I know this, in every sense." "I think you're right," John muttered, not looking away from her before he slowly pulled away and looked into her eyes. This moment lasted perhaps the longest second of Trudy's life. "TR, Trudy, are you here? I saw your car at the house." Trudy didn't hear the door open, so Ava's voice made her jump and abruptly pull away from John. "After your call, oh God, I'm so. When the little brunette appeared in the room, John and Trudy both stood up. Their neighbor. No, not a neighbor anymore, but Trudy's girlfriend. Froze for a moment, looking around at them. Then, with a quick nod, she walked over and opened her arms to wrap her arms around both of their waists. Then she pulled them towards her. "Come here, we need to do this right. I love you both. And you love each other." And that should be enough. After a long moment that, oddly enough, passed without any hostility, Ava released them and looked at John with deep sympathy. "Tell me about your son." She smiled openly and warmly. "Tell me what we need to do with this house to prepare it for his arrival." "John, God, I hate to bring this up now, but there's something we're missing. Or rather, what we haven't talked about yet." John finished tightening the last screw on the crib before turning to Trudy. When he finally stood up and turned around, he couldn't help but look around at the entire room he had prepared for his son's return home in a few hours. The equipment, the decor, the careful, obsessive inspection of every inch to make sure there are no more surprises. He ended with surprises. "Okay, Gertrude, I'm listening," John, carefully, controlled his tone, trying to remain calm. "Over the past few weeks, she has been, well, a savior. There's no denying that. For him, for her, however, is this the moment when you will finally use the accumulated trust? Will you get from me? I don't know, some kind of concession. Is it true what you think about me?" Her face distorted for a moment, but immediately became calm again. She also tried to maintain composure. "Sorry, of course that's exactly it." She sighed and continued. "This is a legal issue. Technically, surprisingly, her cheeks turned pink. John, we both know I have good insurance and, well, we are still married. According to the papers." John chuckled. Honestly, he hadn't even thought about it since. "Since all this started, don't worry, Gertrude. Everything will be fine." Yes, of course, a quiet sigh from the other side of the room did not sound malicious, but there was no patience in it either. Ava looked up from the locked door frame she was leaning on and took a step forward, heading towards her neighbor and lover, with whom she now shared housing. "John, how is your business? How many clients do you have left?" "That's enough," John replied sharply, although the thought that this was not true flashed through his mind, making his words a lie. No one could blame him for being distracted. But to be fair, he started losing clients even before he lost Christy. Christy and everything associated with that her took up an incredible amount of his time for so long that only his most loyal clients stayed with him. He knew that his income was not what it should have been, which created a big problem, a problem with a hard solution, or with two. "Damn it, stop it!" John sighed and ran it, a hand over his face. "You're useless if you continue to be so hateful." He looked at Ava and his wife. They stared back at him as if he might explode on the spot. At that moment, he made a decision that turned out to be one of the most important in his life. I thank you. Yes, I think your help could not hurt me." He felt the tension lifting a little from his shoulders. Both women immediately relaxed as if their bodies had become soft, like rag dolls, and John thought that one of them might even fall to the floor. It's good that this didn't happen, because there was still a lot that needed to be decided and it couldn't be postponed for a minute. Okay, what do you suggest? I mean, how? How is this going to work? Only legally. Trudy glanced at Ava for a moment, and John could not decipher this look. "I swear you will stay in your house, and I will live nearby. We'll stay married for the court and the insurance companies. And that's it. My stepson will be on my company insurance. It's simple. Yes, simple." Strangely, John and Ava said these words at the same time and with the same intonation. Trudy even laughed a little, but immediately fell silent when she realized that the others did not support her. And then it was time for a new stage. So they went to the hospital. Shh. Trudy rocked Chris in her arms for the 1,000th time that night, trying to calm him down. In many ways, it was strange for her. In the year since her husband's son had returned home, the child had hardly cried. Apparently, this was typical for premature babies, but that little honeymoon was over and the baby was definitely catching up. She could tell herself that this was good, that it meant Chris was developing normally, and was probably truly out of the woods. But her eardrums didn't believe it. "It's okay, little prince. There's nothing wrong with you. We're fine. Just not as good as if we were sleeping." She smiled at the red-faced, wiggling, cat-like little bundle of absolute beauty in her arms and grinned. "I'll remember this when you're a teenager and want to sleep in. Until noon." This thought confused her. Will I be in the same state by then? She had no idea, despite what had slowly happened over the past year. This brought up the second strange thing about her current situation, that this took place in her former home, that in fact there were countless such cases here, because her husband, in the eyes of the state, had long since stopped trying to kick her out at the first opportunity. He, oddly enough, opened this house to her with such desperate zeal that could only be called desperate zeal. Trudy laughed to herself. Again, I guess unpaid nannies don't grow on trees. It was true. She accepted it now she was in and out of this place almost every day. Watched her little prince so that John could get a reprieve. Hell, so he could just sleep every now and then. She didn't mind. In any case, she had fallen head over heels in love with her lover's child, and the thought of being separated from him pained her. It was touching how similar this attitude was to the attitude of a child's mother towards his father. As Christy said, pretty much the same thing. That she didn't want to be separated from John once she got a taste of what she didn't know was a part of herself. How can this world be so unfair? When Trudy indulged the new impulses she discovered within herself, it led to heartache and betrayal. But she survived. When Christy did the same, all sorts of love blossomed. But at the cost of her life, it was like a cosmic joke. Should there be regrets? Was this even right? Or was it pointless? Is looking at Christy's change as if it were something bad also a form of betrayal? He woke up, but a deep sleep-choked voice behind Trudy and Chris nearly made her jump. "Ha! You're really tired." Trudy's grin threatened to split her face as she turned to John. "To me, mister, the only reason I'm here is because I was 90% sure that you would faint on the porch. When I saw you walk home, she blinked. When I happened to look out of Ava's window. Coincidentally, I didn't keep track of what was going on or anything like that, honestly." At 11 o'clock in the evening, John chuckled. "Certainly observation time for the main area. How do the new binoculars actually work?" "It's okay, smart guy." Trudy continued to smile. "And don't change the subject. What were you doing walking out so late with my little prince?" "The Queen Mother has requested another audience." John shrugged. "Grandma needs time. But in the morning they call me and say that there are things in the house that I couldn't bring, so it won't be possible to spend the night." His smile lingered. "Thank you again, Gertrude." "I really needed to get some sleep, Gertrude. After all this time, it shouldn't have hurt. Here, let me." John reached out to her. "Believe it or not, I have the ability to." "Ah, that's all." The second Trudy put Chris in his father's arms, the child calmed down, yawned, closed his eyes. And that was it. Trudy wondered if she should have been jealous. If so, she wasn't. Okay, Spatter, you can do this until the end of the night. I believe in you." John finished putting his son into bed, then turned around. Now that the belt was undone, Trudy's wrap dress hung loosely and fell open, revealing her lacy white bra and panties to the man she still considered her husband. "Throw me on your bed and make love to me." And he did it. The decision was made. I can't just turn back time. I have to live with what I did. All this time, John did not say a word, but when she carefully opened the door to her former bedroom, she froze on the threshold, and then slowly turned around. You called me Trudy?" John turned away. Trudy sighed heavily and walked away. Temporary. It was temporary madness for both of us. It had to be this way for their salvation, for the sake of saving everyone. Please don't sleep with my wife. John looked up from where he sat half naked on the couch and grinned at the tiny intruder, who had somehow managed to walk through his door without attracting attention. "Yes, Ava, of course, come in. Please make yourself comfortable." His sarcastic smile instantly disappeared. "Wait, what did you just say?" "She didn't say. I beg you, this is all I have." Ava collapsed into a chair as usual, without asking. "Over the last couple of weeks, it's become obvious where this is going. But please have sex with Trudy." "Don't take my wife from me." John blinked. "I need to thank you. I hardly ever use the word bold in everyday life." He paused, although arrogance would be a better word, actually. "What difference does it make, Webster?" Ava still couldn't look him in the eyes, and we both know the correct word is hypocrite. She began nervously fiddling with her hands in her lap. "It is what it is, and that's why I say I beg." She wiped away a tear that suddenly appeared on her cheek. "I pray that you turn out to be a better person than me." John continued to look at her silently, but someone had to break the silence. "Honey, I'm sorry." John saw Ava's face contoured even before she turned her head toward the hallway, leading to the bedroom. He saw her heart break even before she saw Trudy emerging from the bedroom, in a short robe that barely hid her damp skin. He felt a hint of sympathy and instantly suppressed. Maybe there is a God, but he doesn't answer the prayers of bad people. Ava sniffled and nodded. "Karma. I said that it exists." Without waiting for an answer from her neighbors, the woman stood up. "I'll pack your things, Trudy." "I won't. Don't come to my house again. I can't stand this." She looked at John. "Sorry. It will only get more difficult for you." And with these words, she left, leaving behind a lover torn apart and the husband of this same lover who was completely confused. John left her alone for a while, waiting for his wife to compose herself before speaking to her. "What now? You were so cruel." Trudy sobbed and continued to look at the carpet in front of her, like you wanted to hurt her. Not as if John's voice was cold, lifeless. Not at all like that. Trudy sobbed loudly before her lips curled. After a minute, she finally looked up at him. "Of all the things I've done to you, this is the worst. I destroyed Ava. I destroyed everything I could. She couldn't say no to Christy. She moved on to Ava at the first opportunity. And the fact that I've been jumping into your bed over and over again these past weeks proves that I just can't let you go. I'm not destroyed. I was just speechless." John looked at her, making decisions, and I'm already tired of it. "You're right. We shouldn't have done." He gestured around their almost naked bodies. "This more. But I was angry and you were ready, so we got on that damn old ride again. But I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm swimming in a sea of traitors and finally decided to take a swim myself. Well, to hell with it. Ava learned something. You learned something. Let's leave it at that." Trudy nodded, not hiding her sadness. "What will happen to me now?" Before John could answer, she raised her hand. "No, that's not what I meant. I don't ask you to save me. I'll go live in a hut if necessary. This is what I deserve. I mean, what will happen to her? To your family? Will you take my son from me?" John knew that this was exactly what she wanted to ask, but was afraid to say out loud. He plopped down in the nearest chair and looked for a long time in the direction of Christopher's nursery. One thing has not changed. He still needs you. "So, I don't know." He covered his face with his hands and left them there for a minute. A minute passed in silence from his wife. "I have no idea what kind of life we can live next. You need somewhere to live, and I have a house. You need a reason to live, and you have a reason that you can give me." Trudy's voice sounded with great hope, which she could not hide. "Yes," John looked up. "Call it what you want." Housemates, au pairs, damn business partners, whatever, we can still coexist. He sighed heavily, finally making up his mind. This is the last thing I can do for Christy's memory. Stop hating you and find peace with you. I'll accept it. Trudy took a deep breath, trying to calm down as much as possible. Whatever you offer, I will accept. I will change. I will become what Chris needs to be. Whatever you want me to be for you. John looked at her suspiciously. What does this mean anyway? Trudy blushed, her face covered in a slight blush. Caring for Chris and for John, I'm saying you can use me to feel relief whenever you want. If you get angry, lonely, or just get bored for an hour, she shrugged. Just beckon with your finger and I'll be ready. Although you don't get excited by, come on. We both know that's not true. We know it, and the pile of dirty laundry in the laundry knows it too. Trudy tried to smile, but the smile couldn't stay on her face. One good thing I've learned is that my sexuality, it's not. Her lips pursed as she tried to find the right words. This is not some narrow niche. She made a face. You know what I mean? John chuckled, but not with much amusement. No, actually, I don't understand. Trudy snorted, disappointed. Yes, I think you wouldn't understand. Okay, let me put it another way. I'm not that different from other people. I'm attracted to people. A much wider range of people than I'd realized for most of my life. That's true. But yeah, people. And that suits me. What doesn't suit me is the way I react to my revelations. John began to understand. You gave yourself an excuse that you later regretted. She snorted. That's putting it mildly. But you're mostly right. I told myself that I had to find something I had never tried. For both of us, she said with a slight bitterness in her voice. I convinced myself then that it was important. But in fact, it was stupidity. So you cheated on me for my own good. No, she shook her head without thinking. I did it because I was stunned by this new discovery, filled with desire, and convinced myself that I would not be caught. In general, like all the other scoundrels who cheat. Only in my case, I also hid behind the idea that since it was with a woman, it either didn't count or I was being true to myself. Both options turned out to be lies. John hated himself for it, but he was really interested. His betrayed wife had finally spoken to him. She spoke in ways he never thought possible. It was an amazing moment. And he motioned for her to continue. If I had slept with another man when the man I loved gave me no reason to do so, no one could justify it. It's the same here. Yes, I had more temptations. So what? The same damn discipline should have kept me from a woman, the same way it had kept me from men thousands of times over our years together. Thousands, John grinned. It's something like kung fu level discipline. Damn right. But I broke down when I wasn't ready. And then, instead of fixing everything, I made the situation worse. It made it worse. John shook his head. How dramatic. Sentimental, she nodded seriously. That second time with you and Christy, when I spied on you, I was devastated. I saw the feelings that arose between you, and it all happened so damn fast, and when Ava appeared, she suddenly stopped. God, Ava really left, didn't she? I'm just kidding here, but she left. A couple of tears rolled down her face again, and Trudy wiped them away from her nose. I really loved her. You need to know this. Not the way she loved me. To be honest, and not like me. She looked at him long and intently, you know. I know, John sighed, and I really believe it. But Trudy, yes, I know too. Such wounds do not heal cleanly. There's always a scar. She looked at her hands, but I meant what I said. Let me stay in your life. Let me be all that I can be for Chris. And I'm yours, whatever, as long as you like. John looked up at the ceiling, as if there might be answers there. What if I meet someone else, someone I can love? Then I'll buy that very hut and a beautiful chasemaid's outfit and make a schedule for visits. She giggled quietly, unless your new lover doesn't like girls and doesn't want to share. I would agree to that. Are you kidding me? True, John began to get angry, but at that moment his wife rushed to him, pent-up emotions breaking through her protective barriers. Crap. Sorry, I don't know why I lied. Said that. She desperately hugged his knees. I just can't learn. I didn't mean it. I honestly didn't. You and me. It's just you and me. I won't look at anyone, no matter what. Equipment. They will have. Until you say enough is enough. I blurted it out because I can't bear the thought of losing even a part of you. Oh God, I'm broken. We are all broken. John carefully released himself from her embrace and lifted her to her feet. He had to support her for several seconds before she could stand on her own. Look, I may be a fool, but I'm willing to try. He interrupted her as soon as she opened her mouth. Try to live together. Separate, but close. Do you know what I mean? She nodded without much enthusiasm. Yes, I can accept this. He studied her carefully. I'm serious. Completely separate. I think. I'm sure that it would be good for both of us to abstain for a while. Besides, a little celibacy might be good for the soul. And that's not the most important thing right now. Suddenly Trudy laughed. You mean live like almost every couple like with a newborn? I think we can survive this. The tension began to leave her body. Actually, you're right. She smiled. The floor turned out to be quite a suitable place for a couple who had just abandoned their holy intentions. To hell with careful steps around feelings and wounds. To hell with slowly entering a new life. He knew what he wanted. He was going to take what he wanted. And if anyone thought he was a fool, well, no one ever lit the way by burning bridges. They just leave scars. Before they turned off the light in their bedroom, a quiet but growing cry could be heard through the monitor next to the bed. Without saying a word, Trudy put her robe back on and headed for the door. But before leaving, she turned to him. I'll leave the bed warm for Al. Trudy looked at him, her lips trembling. Good, because I'll be back, her voice lowered. I will always come back. Trudy watched as John walked towards the front door, his shoulders tense. What does he want me to say? I won't give in first. No way, I'm leaving. John turned his head slightly in her direction, but did not turn around completely. His pause showed that he was waiting for her to say something more. Have a nice trip, dear. Try not to miss me too much. Her dry answer was given in short, abrupt phrases. Good luck squeezing every penny out of Frank that he didn't, even know he had. Really, Trudy? This, John sighed. Okay, see you. As the door closed behind his father, Chris released the breath he had been holding. I see atmosphere, Mom. Don't express yourself. Trudy scolded him automatically. This kid, he's still a kid, damn it. Already at that age when his parents' opinions on propriety were, well, ridiculous is probably the most diplomatic way to put it. In addition, he had a legacy from Christy, whom he still had to justify. Strange, but it was this thought about Christy. One of the rare ones in all these years that made her smile. Okay, you're not completely wrong. Do you and Dad have problems? I mean, damn, he's only going away for 2 days, and I didn't have it for 2 damn weeks. No, it wasn't fair, and she knew it. He was almost finishing a series of deals that could secure them for a long time, and the stress was weighing on him. But still, her attempt to seduce him the day before did not make any impression on him. He hadn't even completely undressed before collapsing onto the mattress. A woman could endure it up to a certain point before she stopped being seductive and started getting angry. No problem, Trudy shrugged. It's just, No, I don't know, Chris grinned and put the spoon in an empty bowl and then stood up to his full long height. But I hope I'll understand soon. Katrina Lawrence finally agreed to go on a date with me. At this, his grin widened, and Trudy's heart melted. Oh dear, this is wonderful. I know you've been trying to get her for so long. What a year already. Year, Mom? That's just how long I showed it. We have known each other since kindergarten. He shook his head, not hiding his surprise, and so she said yes. Damn it, damn it, Trudy repeated, smiling and laughing. I'm so happy for you, dear. Just be careful. Oh yes, I know how dangerous blondes can be. He winked, and Dad knows too. Well, I'm off. Time to start. The future and all that. The guy kissed her on the top of the head, took his backpack, and ran out the door before she could answer. As usual, but not as calm as other days. Yes, Trudy muttered, into space. Your father would definitely tell you. Trudy sighed heavily and began to clean up after her son. It was a labor of love, but still a labor. Sometimes she missed the office work, the challenges, the change of pace. And on other days, she remembered how much she hated her job, and how great her joy was when John finally restored his business, to the point that she could stay home with Chris days gone by. She sighed again, and the empty nest is on the way. She laughed. Quietly, God. And I already started talking to myself. What's next? I'll buy a dozen cats, and then a knock on the door interrupted her melancholic thoughts. Trudy headed towards the door, her skirt rustling and her lips lifting in a slight smile. Have you forgotten your key again, Chris? Well, at least I didn't make it to the bus this time before. Hello, beauty. Ava, Trudy took a step back from the door, feeling as if she had been hit by a truck. Damn it, if you insist. Pretending to misinterpret Trudy's words, Ava, as dazzlingly beautiful as Trudy remembered her, entered the house, taking 2 steps forward for everyone. Trudy took back. "You, what are you? What's going on? What are you?" Trudy stuttered, unable to understand what was happening. "What good questions?" Ava openly examined the woman as if she were wearing a nylon nightie and not a dressing gown. "Here's your answer." Ava deftly undid the top button of Trudy's shirt. "Ava, damn, you can't. You have to. Ava was almost sure that a black cloud was about to hover over her and rain down on her like in the old cartoon. It would match how ridiculous she felt as she walked down the street to her car after her humiliating defeat. Finding the car where they promised, she sat down in the passenger seat and grunted displeasingly, refusing to speak first. She simply crossed her arms and stared out the windshield. "So it looks like I won. The scoundrel couldn't help but be so smug. You're probably a detective during this time. Well, how else would you be able to put all the subtle clues together to come to this very obvious conclusion, Sherlock?" Ava replied irritably. John looked at her and raised an eyebrow. Ava rolled her eyes. Holmes, after a moment, she spread her arms and relaxed. "Okay, yes, you win." She could almost hear his mischievous grin. "Right now, I hate myself a little more than usual, to be honest. Okay, maybe not entirely snide." Ava finally looked at him and began to open up a little. "You know, I won't lie. When you found me, that was impressive, by the way, and told me about your crazy plan to test Trudy, I was hoping it would fail and you'd start looking for a divorce lawyer. But I also hoped it wouldn't fail," she shrugged. "I'm a woman. A little levity is expected of us." John started the car and started driving. Ava glanced at him when he did not continue the conversation and, feeling uncomfortable, decided to ask the question that had been tormenting her all this time. "So what did she do?" John finally looked at her. "Did you do it? Do you mean now?" Ava blushed. "Yes, sorry, I had to ask what has changed. Why did you wait 15 years? "University." Ava snorted. "Yes, are you afraid that Trudy will become a cheerleader while she gets her communications degree? Has student seductiveness driven you crazy?" She saw how he struggled with himself, but in the end, he relaxed and laughed. "You have to be careful with these students. Once they leave the farm, no amount of new tractors will bring them back." Ava grinned and took a risk, patting him on the shoulder. "Damn, how I missed you as a friend," she said with slight sadness, looking out the window. "Okay, bad jokes aside, I think I understand what you're getting at." John's smile gradually disappeared. 2 more years and Chris will leave. "I love Trudy. Damn, I love her like crazy, but I can't go through what happened again. If that makes me a creep or proves I'll never be okay or he suddenly went limp. Doesn't matter. I can't wait to find out if there really was only one reason that saved our marriage. And now you know." "And now I know." John nodded, and the slowly spreading smile on his face made Ava feel like her own sacrifice had not been in vain. Something in her gaze changed and he noticed it. Turning to her, he added with the same warm smile, "And as soon as I drop you off, I'll come right back. Tell Trudy that the client canceled the appointment and then make love to her. So Ava, thank you. You were better than you. Should have been karma, buddy, karma off aside. And I just admitted to you that I was hoping things would go differently. She hoped that I would be the one who would test her strength. So there is no need to overpraise me. That's why I thank you. You too risked your heart just like me, and now I have everything in you." He paused, looking ahead. "You are now sitting in a car that will take you to the airport with a suitcase in the trunk." Ava opened her mouth, not knowing what to say, but John continued. "I can't imagine what your life was like before we met. What did you have to go through? What did you endure? And I can't imagine what the last 15 years have been like for you. All I know is that we had just over 12 measly months with each other. I can't let this short period of life poison me any longer." He stopped the car on the side of the road and turned off the engine. Before she could say anything, he leaned over and hugged her tightly, and Ava began to cry in his arms. "Damn, I miss you so much, John." She pressed herself against his chest, trembling, then pulled away and cupped his face in her hands. "God, I just wish I could go back and slap myself properly." "We're not alone." John took a deep breath and started the car again. His lips twitched into a wry smile. And after I gave you a good spanking, I would give myself a slap. Bastard, she playfully hit his arm. So this is the end, right? He became serious. Yes, sorry, but that's how it has to be. Looks like Huey Lewis didn't know what he was singing about. John looked at her for a long time and carefully. Tell me to go to hell if you want, but you have someone. Over the last decade and a half, I've searched for more pearls than Sappho on steroids, overchuckled. My life is not as terrible as my dramatics make you think. Honestly, if I'm faced with the truth, I came back for Trudy, who I deceived into thinking was my wife, not for the one who truly belongs to you. I wasn't lying when I said I was glad she passed your test. She looked out the window long and thoughtfully. Someday I will find my princess. Charming. I have a solution to your problem. John was holding back his laughter, and Ava, even though she knew he was going to say something stupid, still couldn't help it. Well, so be it. Solve my problem, Sir Jonathan, savior of ladies in trouble. Kiss one toad for each lover. You will find your princess in no time. Ava laughed at what she thought was the dumbest joke she'd ever heard, and then, still laughing, leaned over and rested her head on his shoulder. She intended to spend the rest of the trip in this position. Do me a favor. John, no matter what life throws at you, never change. You are a wonderful person. Never change.